Good morning. Welcome to News Center Maine's Political Brew. Glad you could be with us. We're joined today by former state senator and mayor of Portland, Democrat Ethan Strimling, and former Republican state senator Phil Harriman. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Plenty going on. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer will step down at the end of the court's current term. President Biden will choose a successor, and he has promised to nominate a black woman judge. Ethan, this sounds like a big opportunity for Joe Biden to get his base fired up.
Yeah, and it sounds like a great opportunity for Joe Biden to put some more balance onto the Supreme Court, which is really essential. For 230 years, black women have barely even been considered, and to know that we're finally going to have that representation on the Supreme Court, knowing how many black women that are qualified out there have never even had a shot. This is a great day for America. And, you know, Stephen Breyer put country ahead of his own personal ambitions and said it's time for me to step down so that we can try to get this done in the most reasonable way possible. So this is an exciting opportunity.
Phil, how do you feel about the president singling this category out, this demographic?
Yeah, I wish he had left that part out of his announcement. And that when he did at the end of February introduce us to his nominee, and she happened to be a woman of color, that I think would have, what you say in your question, fired up the base. Now it's just a matter of him checking the box on a campaign promise. Everybody knows what to expect, and I don't think it'll have that enthusiasm that one might hope for.
Didn't Ronald Reagan do the same thing in 1980, saying, yes, there had never been a woman on the Supreme Court, I will nominate one?
Yeah, well, and for the same reason, I say the same thing. It was sort of I'm declaring who is going to fit the right gender, and wasn't too exciting an outcome.
I just think it's good that he's doing it the way he's doing it. It's making clear now we can really look at all the black women judges across the country and start to make some determinations about who's most qualified and not play this sort of usual game that, you know, I think, Phil, what you're asking is that, he pretends something and then actually come out with something different. Let's be clear up front. Here's what we're doing. And then all of us can debate who are the best black women judges across the country that should be on the court. Imagine that. We've never had that debate in America, and now we're going to.
Will Maine senators play a role in this, do you think, Phil? Susan Collins or Angus King?
No, actually, I don't. I think we'll find that Angus King will fall in line with the Democrats, and Susan, as she has historically proven that the president gets to nominate a Supreme Court justice, and assuming there's no reason not to confirm him or her, that she'll vote to accept him.
I think that's right. I think obviously Angus, I think, will be part of the Democratic majority on this, but I think Susan Collins, you know, she has on Supreme Court justices basically said yes on every one of them except Amy Coney Barrett, and the reason she used in an election year was timing. But I think that in the end she'll be there on this vote. I think this will pass, no doubt. Mitch McConnell's going to try to block it. And I think the question is, will Susan Collins really stand up to him and tell him you can't play those games again?
Turning our eyes to Augusta, Paul LePage has been hitting Governor Janet Mills for Maine's unemployment rate, saying that the state's 4.7 figure is higher than the national average of 3.9%. Phil, is this a legitimate issue in the campaign?
Well, you know, there's seasonally adjusted reasons why unemployment moves up or down, but to have that almost half a percentage point, more than a half a percentage point difference is worth a conversation. And what is it about the unemployment environment here in the state of Maine? At least my clients are looking for people. I would think the unemployment rate in Maine would be at or below the national average, but I don't know if it's a reason that can be assigned to Governor Mills. If so, I'm sure she's ready to do what it takes to fix it because it's an election year.
Yeah, Governor LePage has a short memory. At this point in his first term, the unemployment rate was higher than it currently is. And when Mills came in about 2 months, the unemployment rate shot up because of COVID. So she's actually done quite a bit more to reduce on a percentage and a number and just a pure number basis than Paul LePage was able to do in his first term. I think that he's probably barking up the wrong tree. Not a good comparison. He's good. If he gets into that Bush with Governor Mills, I think she's going to take him out pretty hard.
This past week, the legislature sustained Governor Mills' veto of a bill which would have allowed farm workers in Maine to unionize. Ethan, what's at stake in this issue?
It's just really sad that this is happening. Governor Mills vetoing this bill and Republicans backing her veto. These are some of the hardest working workers in the state of Maine. What this bill was doing is saying, hey, you know what? Workers ought to be able to talk to each other, to go to their boss and say, hey, we want better working conditions with some protections behind them. Just a really sad day. I'm very disappointed in my governor, and I'm very disappointed in Republicans for sustaining that veto.
Well, I think what she did was the right thing to do. We need a free market system. And to your point just a moment ago about the unemployment rate, if the working conditions and the pay scales for these individuals is below market or not a safe place to work, there are other options for them to explore. And again, from my experience with the clients I work with, they're trying to find out ways, how do I attract people? What do I need to have for working conditions and benefits, et cetera, to attract the workforce that we need? Because the supply chain, as we all know, is stretched thin.
The Pine Tree Power petition is being put off until next year. The backers say it won't be ready for this year's ballot. And this is the proposal that would force the sale of Central Maine Power and Versant to a new consumer-owned utility. Phil, what's the impact of delaying this?
Well, there's two reasons, at least from my observation. One is either the organizers didn't deploy enough human capital out there to get the signatures, or perhaps the people who were asked to sign these petitions aren't in favor of being forced to have the government force these companies to sell and creating a public utility. Either way, the signal is not a good one, and it's going to be, I think, even more difficult for them to get the signatures going forward.
Well, disclaimer, my partner has been running this campaign, and further disclaimer, although not a disclaimer, I've been out there gathering signatures, and I can assure you, Phil, neither of the reasons that you've put out there, people were eager to sign it. I've never seen it when I'm at a voting place to get people to sign up, or when I'm sitting in front of a small business getting people to sign up. It's been remarkable how many people want to sign it, and there were lots and lots of volunteers. I think the reason that they weren't able to get there is they spent a lot of time on the legislature, and that maybe sapped some of the energy trying to get it through Janet Mills. She was never going to sign this. She made that very clear. So if they had started their efforts on the ground earlier, they might have been able to get there.
Former Congressman Bruce Poliquin, who is seeking re-election to that seat in the 2nd District, joined other Republican congressional candidates from around the country in a visit to the southern border with Mexico to highlight immigration issues. He says it's one of his top priorities. Possible primary challengers for Poliquin, Liz Caruso and Garrett Swayze, agree the border with Mexico is a problem, but they say he'd be better off focusing on issues closer to home, not, in their words, grandstanding. Phil, what do you think?
Well, any opportunity to have your name in the media, and especially on the political brew, is good for any campaign. But I think Bruce is proper in taking the time to go there, because from the people I cross paths with, this is a very disappointing issue that the administration is allowing our border to be just open for anybody essentially to come across. And whether we recognize it or not, the people who represent us in Congress are representing our state, but they're also representing our country. So I think Bruce was wise to take that opportunity, because we're talking about it.
I give Phil credit for that, because there is no doubt that this is exactly why Bruce did it, to get his name talked about for sure. But I'm with the other Republican candidates on this. People in Maine care about affordable heating. They care about affordable housing. They care about health care. This is simply not an issue that a single swing voter cares about, even within the Republican Party. I get it. There's a base out there. I get it helps him raise money, but the other Republican candidates are right on this, and I'm sure they're gonna punch hard, as they should.
The Maine Republican Party showed off its slate of state Senate candidates for the fall. They introduced them in a news conference this past week. Ethan, it's an unusually early kickoff for the Republicans. How do you think they're doing in their effort to get candidates ready to run and have a unified message?
Here comes the new boss, same as the old boss, as the Who often sang. They're just bringing back all these recycled candidates who used to serve. I mean, we've got LePage at the top and Poliquin, and then these state Senate candidates. I mean, these are some candidates who opposed gay marriage, who oppose equal rights for women. I mean, this is such a retrograde slate. I'm sort of amazed that they're doing it. But look, in the end, don't bet against Troy Jackson. Troy Jackson got the majority back in 2016. He's never let go. He's expanded it in years when the House shrunk. So I'm putting my money on Troy for sure. especially with the slate of candidates that Republicans are rolling out.
It's an interesting point, Phil. Are the Republicans in Maine all about nostalgia right now?
Well, I think the most important part of this message is that Republicans are organized early and they've got candidates that are working to get on the ballot. And that's the number one thing you need to do, is to have candidates. And we will hear more and more, I'm sure, from the Democrats about the campaign priorities of these candidates, but they're in place. To me, the bigger conversation is, well, how well organized is the Republican Party in Maine? If it's the Senate, and if next month we get introduced to 151 House candidates, that's going to be a very clear signal that the Republican Party is communicating and organized and prepared to campaign to win in November.
Yeah, but Phil, you've got to, I hear you, you got to have somebody in every seat, but you also have to have good people in every seat. And simply, Democrats have got workers, loggers, teachers, real working class folks, and Republicans are putting forward retired politicians and folks who sell yachts. Literally, you can't make it up. You got to have good candidates. You can't simply just have bodies out there.
So are you suggesting that business owners and retirees are not worthy of being a candidate for the state Senate?
They're worthy to be a candidate. I just am not sure that the ones they've got are going to win.
Governor Janet Mills will make her State of the State address next week. Not an official campaign event, of course, but this would certainly seem to mark the kickoff of a Mills re-election campaign. Phil, how will she make her case?
Oh, this is such a golden opportunity. You have the statewide media all tuned in. You have the legislature all focused on every word that she is about to utter. Yeah, this is the unofficial campaign kickoff message, and I expect you're going to hear some things from Governor Mills that will talk about the hard work that has been done and the success that she's going to claim. But she's also going to use it as an opportunity to set the tone for the election. So be prepared to hear more about tax relief and regulation relief as it relates to the pandemic. Yeah, this is a great kickoff opportunity for her campaign.
I agree. I think this is a great opportunity. I would strongly encourage her to not focus as much on what she's done. I think a lot of candidates fall into that. She's done a lot of good stuff. She's going to put it out there, no doubt. But people know how they feel. They know how they feel about the economy. They know how they feel about COVID, et cetera. I think she really needs to put a message out there about what she's going to do next. And it needs to really focus on workers in the state getting wages up. It needs to focus on climate change. That's an issue that people really care about. And of course, around health and how we're going to deal with COVID. But I'd encourage her to be very forward-looking, very visionary, and very hopeful. I think that's what people need and want right now.
Diplomatic efforts continue in the showdown over Ukraine, but Russia is showing no signs of de-escalating, just the opposite, in fact. Ethan, is there going to be bipartisan support for NATO and the Biden administration efforts to support Ukraine, or is that even off the table in terms of sending a unified message?
Well, I hope so. If ever there was a moment that Republicans need to step up and join with Democrats to support a Democratic president and trying to resolve a crisis that is escalating by the minute, now is it. So I hope Republicans do. I'm hopeful there won't be war. Russia obviously has some demands that they want on NATO, which are just non-starters and are not going to happen. Some of our European allies do seem to be a little more hopeful that they can have the conversations that need to occur. But I really hope that Republicans step up and join Democrats in supporting Biden and whatever he needs to resolve this.
Yeah, I agree with Ethan that we need to speak with one voice as America. But what troubles me more than the diplomacy is what is happening within the country of Ukraine. My understanding is that part of the country feels that they should be sovereign. Part of the country feels they should be part of Russia. And will they get into a conflict from within first? That's what I'm watching.
We shall see how it plays out. Let's wrap up with our winners and losers in politics this week. Phil, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Pat. My loser this week is the Biden administration. On the international stage, out of the State Department, they talked about having a sovereign nation and a protected border in the Ukraine, yet it's just the opposite in the southern border of the United States of America. My winner this week is Justice Stephen Breyer. Whether you agree with his political philosophies, he served the role of a Supreme Court justice with dignity and class and academic prowess, and he served us well.
And Ethan?
My winner of the week, not in politics, but the public works crews that are dealing with yet another huge snowstorm, getting our roads cleared, and we all appreciate them all throughout the winter and all year round. And my loser of the week, my landlord. That's a story for another day.
Yes, people can will do their own research on that.
People can
Thank you.
Look on Twitter and find out what I mean by that.
Ethan Strimling, Phil Harriman, thanks for being with us. Thank you for joining us on Political Brew. We'll see you next time. News Center Maine is back after this.